she told her story so many times, and it just re-traumatized her every time. And I think for Shannon, she fought really hard. She really wanted justice. That was really important to her, and not getting that was really like a straw that broke her, and she just couldn't get over that.
Hello, welcome to another episode of Bunny Hugs and Mental Health, a free safe space for people to share and learn from others' experiences with mental health and addictions. I'm Todd Runnebaum, suicide attempt survivor and a recovering substance abuser and former user. Yeah, I liked substances, but I don't anymore. Well, I probably do. I just don't do them anymore. Anyway, it's not about me. Thanks for tuning in. I've got another great episode here. This one is with two sisters, Stacy and Amy, and they are discussing another sister, Shannon, who suffered with addiction and mental health issues and trauma, and she passed away, unfortunately, this fall in September. And they don't want other families to lose loved ones, so they're talking up about trauma and mental health and addictions, which is amazing because there's still a stigma in a lot of families when they lose someone in one of those ways. They don't want to talk about it. So that's incredible. This episode will also be on YouTube. So if you or someone you know likes YouTube and likes this kind of subject matter, please go ahead and point them in the right direction. That's under Bunny Hugs and Mental Health on YouTube. Make sure to stay tuned to all the great episodes coming up. I've talked to someone about sibling abuse. I've talked to someone about complex post-traumatic stress disorder. I talked to someone about their borderline personality disorder, someone with OCD, people with trauma. And I even spoke with Carolyn. She was on Survivor, season 44. If you're a Survivor fan, you just need to know the name Carolyn and you know exactly who I'm talking about. So there's lots of amazing episodes coming up. And don't forget also that on Thursdays, there's Mental Health Headline Hot Takes with Nick and Todd. My co-host Nick is a reality TV star. He was on Love is Blind season 2, and he has his own YouTube and audio podcast as well, Eyes Wide Open. So stick around for all that stuff. And be sure to keep listening after the episode here. I'll be talking about a contest that's going on, so be sure to enter that. But without further ado, I give you Stacy and Amy.
So Shannon was a very vibrant person. She loved life and she lived life to the fullest. She loved people. She was a very considerate and compassionate person. She really went out of her way always to make sure people felt included. And she just really loved to know the history of people, to know their story and get to know them on a more personal level.
I relate. I think we would probably get along, Shannon and I.
Oh, yes. She got along with everyone.
Where did you guys grow up?
In Regina.
In Regina. Oh,
yeah.
Okay. And so how old was she in 2015?
Oh, that's a good question.
Or how old would she be now, I guess?
She just turned 37 before she passed away.
Okay. And no kids, no...
No kids, no. She lived a pretty adventurous life. Yeah, she liked to live in the countryside. She was living with a friend in Colgate, Saskatchewan. She loved the peace and quiet out there. She's a very old soul. Mm-hmm. So she loved to be able to go around and just watch for wildlife or plant. She had a great big garden out there, plant her garden, take care of her flowers. Yeah.
We would really get along. What was she doing for a profession?
She had several jobs throughout her life. So I think the thing she loved the most, she worked reception in a doctor's office in Weyburn. And that I think is where she found a career really. Until then she'd kind of just had jobs, but there, because it's such a people orientated job, she really loved that. She worked in a bank. She worked at Tim Hortons. She did a variety of things. But because of her trauma, she had a really hard time holding down employment, especially the last few years.
So what happened in in 20, or I guess, what was her traumas? Was there traumas before 2015?
We think so. She didn't always, tell us everything. We're a pretty close family, but we never really talk about painful things. We really focus on the positives in our family. And so, you know, in 2015, we know she was raped by a close friend, but she did have problems before that. She was already kind of on a down slope, and she had just broken up from a 8-year relationship. It was on the rocks. Things were really tough, and she went to a close friend's house because she was having trouble with her boyfriend. And this friend, got her drunk and took advantage of her, unfortunately. And that was really the tipping point for her, where she couldn't really come back from that trauma.
Was she ever diagnosed with any kind of mental health issues or mental illnesses?
Yeah,
Ever?
Shannon was diagnosed with PTSD after her sexual assault, and she was diagnosed with insomnia, depression, mostly everything she was prescribed narcotics for, and Shannon really didn't like how they made her feel. So she ended up going to rehab at one point to try to stop the addiction from drinking, and she wrote in her journal, which I have, that the meds just really didn't make her feel comfortable, and she was forced through her psychologist to go on these meds, and she didn't want to take that route. She wanted to do something holistic and something that made her feel better. And so she really had a hard time. I have her prescriptions. She had 8 prescriptions they were given her, and she didn't want to take any of them. So she got a prescription for marijuana, which did seem to help her, but she really had a hard time sleeping. And then that kind of led to a down spiral of all the other, like the severe anxiety, the depression, kind of all just swirled around that.
Right. Yeah. As someone that's gone through addiction and anxiety and depression, lack of sleep, it's like throwing gas on a fire. It's just even like 1 or 2 nights. And if you're constantly struggling with insomnia, I can only imagine the spiraling. And no offense to anyone that takes meds.
No.
If it works for you, that's good. But some people just, it's a personal choice.
And because Shannon was on assistance, she didn't really have options to get help from, she couldn't go to private care. She couldn't afford to go to other options. So she was stuck with what they prescribed her. And when it didn't work, she didn't really have any other options. So she continued to turn to alcohol, and that's where she found the most peace, unfortunately.
Did she go to addiction treatment at all?
She went to treatment twice in her life. So early on, our family and her boyfriend at the time paid for her to go to treatment, private treatment, and obviously that's very expensive. And it wasn't successful for Shannon. She didn't find what she healing there, and then she had court mandated treatment later on, but still it didn't provide any healing for her, or it didn't really help with the addiction problem.
I think for Shannon, the alcohol was kind of what took away the pain. So when she was drinking, that was the only solace she had where she didn't feel trapped.
Right. Yeah. I can attest to that.
Yeah.
and the marijuana. I mean, yeah. And then the combination, it's all just very numbing. I mean, it's numbing at the moment, but long term, it's a horrible investment for your mental health. So yeah. So before 2015, she went to treatment, or was this the first time? Oh, so she had been struggling with things before.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to. I'm not diagnosing her at all, but we have a very similar path, and a lot of it was ADHD for me, as it turns out. I don't know if
I've suspected that as well.
Yes, Shannon did have a lot of the same symptoms, and we do believe that Shannon had a prior assault when she was a teenager, and she just never really got over the shame and felt comfortable to be vulnerable enough to share that experience with her family.
I just read an article the other day about what the percentage of young women is with that experience some kind of sexual assault.
statistics are 1 in 3, isn't it?
Experienced sexual assault, but I think we have all probably
Bananas.
had some kind of like unwanted sexual attention or comments. Every woman.
Yeah. And if you're already, I'll say sensitive or have you're predisposed, I don't know if I use that word right, to addiction and anxiety and depression, and then add shame and guilt and whatever else on top of it. Yeah. Again, it's like gas on fire.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gas on fire. Yeah. Yeah.
And Shannon was such a caring person that like I could see herself putting herself in a vulnerable situation and being taken advantage for that, trying to help someone and being in the wrong place.
Shannon was very trusting with people, and she just really wanted to be there to help anybody out. Like in a random room of anybody, she would make sure everyone was included. You know, at the bar, she would make sure that everybody was invited to her table, or if someone was sitting by themselves, she would get up and bring them to the dance floor to make them feel included. Like she was very much a people person, and she took comfort in not being able to solve her own problems, but being there for someone else.
Yeah. And she was very trusting. She believed the best in everyone.
Yeah. I like to think I do that as well. I mean, I'm at the age and have had the life experience now where it's like, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt, but I'm also cautious.
Yeah.
Where when I was younger, it was just like, hey, someone new. Woohoo. But yeah. I know what I was going to ask earlier. Was her friend charged at all with sexual assault or?
Unlike any other times in her life, Shannon, I think, felt really betrayed by this assault. And as soon as she realized what was happening, you know, she immediately went to the hospital. She got checked out. She reported it to the police, and she did decide to press charges, and it did go to court. Unfortunately, you know, the system failed Shannon, and there no charges or.
He was found not guilty.
Yeah.
Kind of what happened was through the court proceedings, Shannon was all prepared. And, you know, every time she met her lawyer, she had to disclose all the information. And it was like ripping off a Band-Aid. So it was really traumatic for her. So when she met the legal aid, she had to disclose all the information. When she met victim services, she had to disclose all the information. The hospital that night, she disclosed all the information. So she was really already in a very panicked and anxious state. And a week before she was supposed to appear in court, they switched out her legal aid, and she had to relive it all again. And at that point, you know, she was really anxious and scared, and the legal aid didn't necessarily seem to really buy into Shannon's story necessarily. And so she didn't have time to kind of give him the full story. And he just didn't really fight for her. There was a test. What do you call the
preliminary?
Testimony?
Yeah, testimony that was changed from the first night of the assault to when it was in court, and he never questioned it. And so there was some really big flaws that should have represented Shannon better, and it just didn't work out for her, and she felt really uneasy.
And her assailant really took advantage of the system. So they did everything they could to prolong the proceedings, which just drew out Shannon's anxiety and depression. We attended court with her several times, and he just wouldn't show up. And then, just a delayed in proceedings. Like it was a really awful experience for all of us, but especially Shannon, obviously. And it was really eye-opening to how flawed the system is. Like, I know it's innocent until proven guilty, but we thought this was a pretty clear-cut case, and it still, the system failed her. And you know, the assailant got all of the benefits of the court system, and the victim just, you know, she told her story so many times, and it just re-traumatized her every time. And we are really all disappointed with the outcome, unfortunately. And I think for Shannon, you know, she fought really hard. She really wanted justice. That was really important to her, and not getting that was really like a straw that broke her, and she just couldn't get over that.
And this is why a lot of women don't
absolutely
press charges.
It was so awful, absolutely, going through that. And then the lack of supports for her. You know, they have victim services, but yet
They bought her a new pair of sweatpants, but they didn't give her counseling to be able to get through, the next couple months to get to court, right?
Yeah, they were not with her, but by her side the whole time. They didn't help her navigate the system, which was really hard. It's not something you ever, you don't learn how to navigate a court system. No one was there to support her through it. And yeah, they kind of disappear after a few months, and that's it. And what we've learned through Shannon's experience is that rape is a lifelong trauma. It doesn't go away. And there's no supports beyond the initial kind of few months. So it's been really eye-opening for us to go through this experience, and heartbreaking.
Is that victim services? Is that a government thing, or is that a volunteer, like a
it's
non-for-profit?
Through the police. So the police provide victim services when you report an incident.
I see.
Yeah. Okay. And then there are other supports, nonprofits and things like that out there, but we're specifically talking about the victim services through the police.
Right. And even the night of, or the next morning or whatever, like, all you want to do is just go home and cry and forget it even happened, and then to go to the hospital, and then they're like,
a broad
I don't know
test.
if people are, rape kits or tests are not. They're very
invasive.
They're about as violating as being raped.
Yes. Absolutely, yes. Yeah.
I only know this because I sat on a jury a few years back, and it was a rape case, and it did go her way. Let's say
that's great to hear.
Yeah. But I learned a lot just being on the jury and how the whole system runs. And it was during COVID, and so it had been pushed back like 3 years. This poor girl was waiting, and oh God. So I could only imagine it. Well, it's so much more complex with Shannon because it's someone you trusted. So it's a friend.
Mm-hmm. So
then, and then being pushed back further and further to the point that she doesn't even win the case. So man, it's like, there's layers to that trauma right there.
Absolutely.
So then after the case was, it wasn't thrown out, but it was like just found not guilty, I guess.
Yeah.
How did she change after that? Like, how did she spiral down? What were some of the things you noticed?
She kind of started drifting from family, not being so close to us, not sharing as much with us, just trying to make a network of friends that would support her addiction, because she only felt comfortable when she was drinking. And we all started having children and having a family, so we had to set some healthy boundaries with Shannon just to protect our own children, right? So it was really difficult because Shannon really wanted to be involved in all her nieces' lives. She wanted to be there. She'd always offer to babysit, but she was always under the influence. So we really had to be guarded, but try to include her as much as possible because she was so special to us.
Mm-hmm. And her depression definitely increased. She had a couple suicide attempts after that. We noticed her health declined, I think, because of her drinking and the depression and all of those things. So she had some long-term health problems, and just her quality of life in general really declined.
How do you walk that fine line, loving someone that's you can see is going through this, but also setting boundaries? That must be the hardest thing on earth.
It's so hard because you think by setting those boundaries, maybe it'll give her a light to want to do better and see that she had so much potential. She had so many great things about her. She aspired to be a counselor. She wanted to help other people, but she just couldn't find the right resources on how, without having a job, how does she go back to school? Without having support, how does she get to where she needs to be able to even make the decision to be a counselor? She really wanted to help people, but she just couldn't find the right resources to get past her own traumas.
Yeah, and I don't know if we ever did find the right balance between loving her and setting great boundaries. It's something we tried to do. I know her death was really sudden and shocking for us, and it brought up a lot of guilt. It's something we're still trying to work through ourselves. Like, did we contribute to her decline with the drinking and did things get worse because we couldn't support her in the way that she wanted us to? but we also didn't want to be that enabling factor. We didn't want to continue to encourage the drinking and the behaviors that came with it.
Yeah, that's so tough. I've talked to so many families. I've gone through my own addictions. I've worked in addictions for a bit. And I mean, it's hard to tell, right? Because everybody's unpredictable, especially if they've been using.
Yeah.
And, yeah, it is so hard. I tell people all the time, I think my wife and my family had the harder job watching me and feeling helpless
Yes.
and not knowing what that balance is then it was harder for them than it was me. But I've also been told that's not right either. But I mean, it's just difficult, right? It's all just so
for
hard.
Everyone, yeah.
And I think people are starting to talk more about it now, which is great, because then families can kind of have it's not uncharted waters, right? They can talk to someone else who's been through it and who can hopefully help them set healthy boundaries and know what to expect, right? But from our own perspective, like Shannon was the first time we really had to deal with this, and we thought, we can send her to rehab and everything will be perfect and rosy, but it just didn't work out that way, and she just had her own demons that she couldn't deal with, and then felt judged by us because we had to set those boundaries. And it was just a fine line, right? Where we wanted to be able to support her, but we wanted her to be healthy.
Yeah, right. And it's almost like you have to re-gauge the boundaries every time you're with her because it is unpredictable at times. And it's like, okay, today I'll give you this much, but that doesn't mean next time I see you, I'm going to give you that much space. And then that's confusing to them. And oh man. Yeah, it's brutal.
Yeah.
The first time she went to treatment, did you guys have like what's that called? There's a TV show called where all the family get together.
Intervention.
Yeah, we did do that, and Shannon did not take well to that. We had all our family close, all our sisters. We surrounded her with love, and she really
felt attacked.
Yeah, she felt attacked. She felt the victim, and she thought we were all turning on her. So I think that kind of made her realize that we wanted her to go to rehab, and she went because we wanted her to. Yeah. But I don't think herself she was ready, or even up until her death, she really didn't think she had an alcohol problem.
Yeah, working in addictions and being through it, I saw lots of people that were there for other people to either get their marriage back, get their job back. It was court mandated. There's no one size fits all when it comes to treatment.
Yeah.
Some people do need to be forced into treatment. Most of the time, I don't think it works. I think you have to be ready. Yeah, you need that change.
And I think that's what we realized through Shannon's experience as well, is, we had thoughts of what we wanted for her and expectations of who we could see her becoming, but she was happy in her life. She loved her life in Colgate with her friends, and that's what they did, is they all drank, but it made her happy. So we had to come to terms with that, to understand that she needed to come to things on her own time, and unfortunately she never did get that time to battle her addictions or to get clean
Feel
or
ready.
Whatever the
win
term
the fight.
To win the fight. Yeah, she never got to win the fight, but she was she did have depression, and she did have these traumas and things that she was dealing with, but she did have friends and people that loved her, and she did have a good life. It just wasn't the expectation that we saw for her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the other complex thing. It's so it's like, I'm glad people are talking about mental health and addictions now, because they go hand in hand. Mm-hmm. I don't like even saying mental health and addictions. It's just mental health. Yeah. And so some people go to treatment for addictions when it's feeding their anxiety and their depression. So it's maybe you don't need the tough love addict counselor in your face. Maybe you need trauma therapy mixed with 12-step group or whatever. So yeah, I think actually since it's been more obvious to me anyway, since COVID, that addiction treatment therapies are changing, and it is turning more into, okay, let's deal with everything, not just the drinking and the addiction, because why they're using, why they're drinking, as opposed to you're bad if you drink.
Yeah, and I think that's what Shannon struggled with, is the judgment of the drinking, and she had a hard time letting the vulnerabilities out because she just felt judged for the drinking. Mm-hmm. So she went through many counselors before she found one that would actually listen to her, and kind of I talked to her the Friday before the accident, and she had come to some realizations on some of her struggles, and she said, sometimes I don't get along with Mom, and that's because I realize we're more alike than we aren't alike, and that's why we're fighting. And she was really starting to get a clearer picture, and things were starting to go really good for her. And it was great to hear how much enlightenment she had. Unfortunately, just a little too late for her, I guess.
Introducing the timely children's book, Sometimes Daddy Cries. The visually stunning book is told through the eyes of a boy whose father suffers from depression. He sees his dad get sad, rest, and even go to the hospital, all while comparing his father's depression to a physical ailment. Sometimes Daddy Cries is getting rave reviews from parents and mental health professionals alike. One critic has stated, "This is a timely and important book that will help countless fathers and sons broach the subject of depression." An Amazon customer commented, "An excellent book to open up a conversation with a young child about depression in a parent. No big words, just a book about feelings." Sometimes Daddy Cries author Todd Rennebaum has personal experiences with anxiety, depression, and addiction. Sometimes Daddy Cries is available in hardcover and paperback on Amazon.ca and Amazon.com.
One thing I've learned through my experience with mental health and addictions is you never know what you need to hear until you hear it. Make sure to rate and review on Apple and to tell as many people as you can about the podcast so others can hear something they need to hear from one of my guests. After all, this is a free mental health service, which is a rare thing, so why not share with as many people as you can? Today's episode of Bunny Hugs and Mental Health is brought to you by Co-op. I've been a member of my local co-op, Sherwood Co-op, for, about 25 years, I think. My co-op is one of more than 150 local independent cooperative associations in more than 600 communities across Western Canada. Co-op is a different kind of business. It's not just a gas bar or a grocery store, although co-op is those things too. At its core, co-op is a group of people working together to help their neighbors and build their community. Co-op members are owners, and success is shared with everyone. Your co-op doesn't benefit one person or one corporation. Your co-op was built for everyone. Your co-op was built for your community. Learn more about co-op and find a location near you at coop.crs. At what period of her journey was that kind of enlightenment? Was that near the end?
That was the day before the accident, yeah.
Oh, it was an accident.
Yeah. Shannon was involved in a single vehicle rollover. Yeah.
Oh, okay. For some reason I thought it was an accident, but it was like maybe it was on purpose accident kind of thing, or is that something you're still...
Well, from what we understand, it wasn't necessarily on purpose. Shannon was really struggling. Like, she was having a great day. They were out celebrating her birthday, and from what we understand, she was struggling. She was driving fast, and then she stopped, and she didn't want to drive fast, and then she was driving fast again, and she stopped. Like, on her journey, it was a 13-minute drive, her final drive, and she stopped 5 times on that drive, and I think she was really humming and hawing on what she should be doing, and she didn't have her license, so she wasn't even supposed to be driving. But the swirl, the anxiety took over. She was driving too fast, and she didn't end up braking and skidded across the road, and the vehicle rolled. So I don't think she had intentionally planned it, but
right.
I think it was just so much... as she called it, the tornado in her stomach took over, and she could not function in her brain.
Right. And ultimately, it doesn't matter. She wasn't well, and this was the result, whether it was...
I think it was an inevitable situation, It was just unfortunate timing. Like, nobody was prepared for it, but she was on that slope, and we were always, in the back of our minds, we were always worried when we were going to get this phone call.
Yeah, she'd had, a few other more minor accidents leading up to that. She had hurt her hand. Well, if
She was in a
broke it,
cast. She was in a cast. She broke her finger, 2 weeks before the accident. So she was in a cast when she was in the accident. A month before that, she had fallen down some stairs at a friend's brewery and
broken some ribs,
broken 4 or 5 ribs and punctured her lungs. Like it was getting to the point where we were very terrified of the situation Shannon was in, that something was going to catastrophically happen.
I see. Was she intoxicated every time that she was
Yes.
injured?
Yeah.
I see. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm sorry for your loss. And I never know what to say. And I've been in this situation, I don't know how many times, whether I was in treatment or working there or interviewing. It's always just so I don't know. I don't know what I would want to be told. So I don't know what to say, but other than I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it's really hard. And it's hard because, you feel guilty that you didn't do more to help her. But then you also feel guilty that you have a sigh of relief that she's now free and no longer suffering, right? So it really is a catch-22 because you want her in your life, but there's no more trauma for her.
Mm-hmm.
There's no more struggles. Yeah.
Yeah. And I know when I was in my darkest time, I don't know if you know, but I'm a suicide attempt survivor myself. I can relate to what you're saying about her getting injured and stuff. Cause I mean, I was reckless when I was in my darkest time. It was just like full throttle, and I don't care if I get hurt or I'm not trying to justify her decisions or anything, but I'm trying to help you realize what her thought process maybe was, or the lack thereof. It's just, you're just hurting so much that you're just looking for any kind of dopamine hit.
Any kind of release, anything to take your mind off of it. Yeah, we could see that in her.
And I almost feel like she, was taking those extra risky scenarios. She's putting herself in those to maybe even end things a little sooner, to not feel the pain, but without her having to do it herself. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Like if it happens, at least I'm not suffering anymore, but I didn't make this decision. Like I didn't put my family through this hurt on purpose, type of thing.
Right. Right. And the weird thing is, how trauma can actually put you in this mind space, and then you start to create your own traumas because you're living this lifestyle. So now you're constantly, oh, I got a thumbs up there somehow.
That's Shannon. She's happy you're doing this for her.
I guess I've never seen that before in my life. That was weird.
That's interesting.
Squirrel. Yeah. But how mental illness and trauma, and how you can start to create your own traumas within your own trauma spiral, and then to the point that it takes you out. Like that's what I guess the quote unquote disease of whatever this is does.
I think Shannon really felt hopeless. And so when you do feel hopeless, you kind of live life on the edge, right?
And there's no, rationalization is not a thing.
Yeah.
Or consequence. Shannon really didn't view consequence in her decision making. She just thought, well, whatever. I've dealt with all this before. I can get through another thing,
For me, it was, I thought about the consequences, but it was also just like, I feel like shit, and this is going to make me feel good now.
Yes.
And I'll deal with the consequences later if I need to or don't need to, or if I make it through this situation. So this was in September, her crash?
Yeah.
And how's the family dealing with it? Like, you just went through Christmas without her for the first time.
I knew Christmas would be challenging without her. She really was the light in our family. She was the energy. She brought the joy into a room. And so we have definitely been missing that this Christmas. And until I had this grief at Christmas, I never realized how much Christmas is about family. And we've been watching the Christmas classics with the kids, and they hit in a very different way now that I have grief. And I took my kids to go see the Elf musical, and I was in the audience bawling as the family comes back together, because our family will never come back together. And so there's been some trauma, but there's also been some really beautiful things. Stacy has made some mementos for us that she gifted us this Christmas, and it's been beautiful. We're sharing stories of Shannon and talking about her a lot. This is the first time. I live in BC, so this is the first time we've gotten back together since Shannon's celebration of life, and so that has been really healing to get together over a happy occasion versus something sad. Yeah, and aside from Christmas, we've been doing lots of things to help us heal as well. So taking time together as a family and finding moments to heal together.
Yeah, Shannon, Christmas was a tough time for Shannon because her sexual assault in 2015 happened just before Christmas. So Shannon really had a hard time celebrating, but we really tried to include her and make her feel special at Christmas. So this Christmas, I really wanted to honor Shannon. So I tried my best to, make these memorial ornaments for Shannon for everyone to have and just make this Christmas about Shannon. Like I got gifts for the girls from Shannon they can make their own bracelets to always remember her. And I just want her to always be part of us. So even though she's not here in body, she is in spirit and she's always going to be part of our family. We just need to honor that.
It's time again for that Some Bunny special, a segment where we chat about who cooperated in your mental health journey and helped fill your emotional tank, brought to you by Co-op. So through this whole through the last little bit here with the struggles and everything, or even whoever, I guess, is there anybody you want to give a shout out to that's been there for you emotionally, mentally?
I would like to thank all my coworkers who have been really supportive, and also Andrew Hinks from the 306 shop for helping us design the hoodies, and Rob Kushner from Stingray Tattoos for helping do the boom tattoos that we all got that kind of just helped us heal in our loss of Shannon.
Oh, that was Rob that did that. Okay, yeah. He's been on the show.
Oh, awesome.
Wow. The connections.
Yeah.
Yes, it's really neat to see all these connections coming together because Rob also introduced us to Lindy, who was the medium who also helped us on our healing journey. And then through Lindy, Jennifer kind of connected us through Lindy and you. So yeah, it's really neat.
Oh, full circle.
Yeah.
Amy, is there anybody you wanted to give a shout out to?
Our older sister, Celine, has been really wonderful through this whole journey. When we were kids, we found out we had an older half sister, and we haven't been the closest growing up. We've led separate lives, but this has really brought our family together. And Celine has been amazing on checking on us and making sure that we're okay. And everyone else that Stacy said as well. My own coworkers have been absolutely amazing. My boss, Sydney, has been super supportive through this all. And all of our family has really been helping us out through this experience.
And I'm learning a lot about grieving lately just through interviews because I'm kind of preparing myself because I've never lost someone really, really close before. And well, with my mental health issues in the past, it's like, what happens when it doesn't? And I've been told, there are beautiful moments in grieving. And there's also how you grieve can be a choice too. So you can choose to see the beauty in it and stuff. So it sounds like that's what you're doing, and that's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah, Shannon wouldn't want us to be sad. She would really want us to celebrate her life, and so we've been trying our best to do that and to honor her memory. And we've had some really beautiful moments. So So we found out about her accident. You don't get a lot of notice in these situations. So my daughter had been with a friend at a cabin, and we picked her up in Kamloops on our way. We drove 24 hours to get to Regina to be here with Stacy because she was alone. My parents are in BC as well. So we picked up my daughter, and I picked her up from the cabin, and apparently she hadn't brushed her hair in a week. So she had this huge rat's nest. And so on the way, I'm texting Stacy, we got to get Mac a haircut. We're not brushing this out. It's just not going to work. So she called a family friend who we go to get haircuts. And Effie said, I'm booked solid. I have no vacancies, except Shannon had a hair appointment to get her hair dyed. Her annual birthday treatment was to dye her hair. And she said, so Mac can have Shannon's appointment. And she said, and I have all this purple dye because that's what Shannon gets and no one else gets this. What am I going to do? So we decided as a family to all get a purple streak in our hair for Shannon to celebrate her. And it was we were dealing with all this grief and planning her celebration of life. And it was a moment we all came together and we talked about Shannon and we laughed and it was really beautiful.
Well, it sounds like you're doing grieving right. Not that there's a wrong way, but
it's a new process for us as well. We've lost grandparents and others, but like you said, losing someone so close to you, that it's been a very different process for me for sure.
In a tragic way too.
Yeah,
I mean, that also is a factor of how you grieve, I think.
Yes, and I do feel that, when someone passes away tragically, but not only tragically in the sense of an accident, but with addictions, there's another sense of guilt you feel. And so trying to navigate not only the loss, but the guilt has been a challenging part for me. But I know Shannon is a healer and she always was trying to make other people happy. And a week before the accident, she was sitting at her friend's brewery and listening to another friend of hers that had just lost her dad, and she consoled her through that. And so every time I'm struggling, I just reach out and I talk to Shannon and I just tell her what I'm struggling with. And, miraculously, I'll look around and I find a dime. And I know Shannon's there just listening to me and she wants me to be happy. She never meant for this to happen and she would never want any of us sad. So, I'll take the 10 minutes to cry when I hear a sad song or when I think of her. But then I think of all the good times I had with Shannon and how she's looking over me and wants me to be happy and wants me to carry on a legacy for her.
Talk a little bit about the legacy and what you have planned or what you've already done.
So we started with these hoodies that you can see Amy and I are both wearing. We call them Boom Bunny Hugs because we're from Saskatchewan. So, the bunny hugs as you got in your title. So we thought at first.
Most of my listeners now are actually American, so they'll have no idea what the hell we're talking about.
It looks like a hoodie, but we call them bunny hugs for some reason. Yeah,
without the zipper.
Correct.
Yeah,
yeah, that's right.
It's a pullover.
Yeah. So we thought we would make them for family, and then once we started making them for family, we thought, well, maybe we could put it on a logo that Shannon was a sexual assault survivor. But in doing so, we wanted to be able to raise awareness for the trauma Shannon had been through. So we reached out to the Regina Sexual Assault Center, and they were all on board for, sharing Shannon's story. And we wanted to, instead of doing flowers for her celebration of life, we did in lieu of donations to the Regina Sexual Assault Center. And the donations have been remarkable. Like, I think we're about $2,500 in Shannon's honor. And people have bought the hoodies or the bunny hugs from BC to Ontario, and we've sold 52 of them. And it's just been everybody kind of getting together and wanting to share Shannon's story because they knew Shannon was vocal about what she had been through and that she really wanted to make a change.
And she helped so many people by sharing her own story. Since her death, we've had so many people come to us and say, I knew about Shannon's story. She helped me through my own situation. We had no idea how many people she had helped herself. So it's a legacy we want to continue for her to continue to help people. So raising this money for the Regina Sexual Assault Center just helps them continue to help others in Shannon's honor. And that's really important to us. Yeah, and Stacy has this great connection with the 306 Skate Shop. So she had done some hoodies before for her daughter, Hope, who has Down syndrome. And so we reached out to Andrew Hinks, and he was all on board. He let us donate all of the proceeds. They didn't keep anything. They've been really great to work with over there.
That's awesome. It's and it's so great that you guys are just open and talking. I mean, the stigma around, trauma, sexual assault, addictions, all that stuff. It's changing, but it's still there. So I always appreciate that families are willing to talk about it so openly and candidly and passionately and cast no judgment. There's no shame in it. It's just stuff.
And that's something we've learned, and it's been healing for us because growing up, we kind of lived where we didn't really share the vulnerabilities, And so now that we've been through what Shannon's been through, we are starting to share vulnerabilities ourselves and realizing that the more you can share, the bigger your network is. And you're not alone. Everybody has traumas. Everybody has their own shame that they're trying to work through secretly, but there is a ton of support and you can share that. And people are willing to, reach an olive branch. And by just talking to someone, like even I had a coworker tell me, thank you for sharing Shannon's story because I've been through something similar. And you made me want to share my own story and work through my own struggles. So, it's been very healing. And I think that was part of Shannon's purpose is she knew it would be healing for us and wanted us to share.
And so it's allowed us to work through our grief to hear that we're helping others.
Right, yeah. Oh, nice. And by telling, well, like that your coworker said, it's like once you open up and tell your story, it's almost like you're giving permission to others that they can, it's okay, you can talk about it too. And then that's like a massive weight off their shoulders. And I mean, you can't heal and secrets keep us sick, and you can't start healing until it's all, you're able to even talk about it or feel comfortable to talk about it. So you guys won't even know how many lives you've touched. So do you have anything planned in the future for Shannon's legacy?
We have a friend who is a medium who we've kind of been using to help connect with Shannon and to see, what do you want us to do, Shannon? Do you have any unfinished business? And just connect to feel at peace with her, right? And she wants to work together to do some work in the new year for mental health. She works in, I think it's with the province, but she works helping people who are struggling with mental health addictions. And just, I think having that energy as a medium, she's able to help people in a judgment-free way. So just carrying on the legacy of being a judgment-free zone where we can help people who have struggled and have kept secrets to not feel the shame.
It's been interesting, this journey for us. We started just, in lieu of, what are you going to do with flowers? They're going to die. Shannon loved flowers, but like planting them, not cutting them. So, we started, let's just raise money for the Regina Sexual Assault Center. And it's really blossomed into this bigger thing. So we're really just open to opportunities. We donated money to the Regina Sexual Assault Center, and CBC Radio heard about it, and they invited us to come on and share our story, which then we, had bigger impacts and more people heard about Shannon's story. And then, our cousin Jennifer knows you, and she said, this is a really good fit. You're doing these buddy hugs and you're talking about mental health. And I know this guy that does this podcast. And we were like, this is perfect. Oh my goodness. So we're just, taking these opportunities as they come up and sharing Shannon's story. And we're just, I think, being really open to wherever this journey takes us.
Is there anything that I didn't ask that you wanted to make sure you said or people heard?
Well, I think we just want to make sure that people know that there are resources like the Regina Sexual Assault Center where they can get support. They can get a judgment-free place, or, reach out to your friends, reach out to somebody that is sharing a story. There is always a judgment-free place for you to share your story. You don't have to suffer in silence, and suffering with those secrets really is a demise on your own. Like, you just can't get through life unless you feel comfortable. So be open, be vulnerable, share those stories and get healing.
I know for myself that it is so scary healing because you've already gone through enough pain.
Yeah.
And there's pain in healing.
Yes.
And you don't want to feel any more pain, but that pain is a huge investment as opposed to the pain that you're feeling every day. That's just compounding the pain.
Yeah.
This pain is very freeing and wonderful pain. It's worth it. So, yeah.
And I think the more people can hear from stories of someone like you that's been on both sides, the better off they are to understand, like, there is suffering. Either way, there's going to be suffering. But if you choose to share your story, you are controlling the suffering as the suffering, the other side controls you, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's either perpetuate the pain by feeling pain or getting rid of the pain by feeling the pain.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think so.
If you could change anything in the system. Oh.
That's a huge question for sure.
I know. It's almost not even a fair question because it's like I would tear it down and start from the beginning.
Yes.
Again.
That would be the first thing.
Start with compassion.
Yes, I think that's part of it. I think, many of the people that Shannon, encountered on her journey had never been through this experience themselves, or at least it didn't seem like it. So the compassion is a big thing, but just how to navigate the system as someone going through trauma. Here's 10 forms to fill out so you can access this funding or whatever she had to deal with. It was all so hard and so much work on top of the trauma that she was trying to navigate. And so, she would delay doing paperwork, as people with depression, those kinds of things are really, really hard. And so cutting the red tape, making the system easier to navigate for people, other than burning it down and starting over. Making it an easier system to navigate, and then more supports. A couple months of support from victim services is not enough. Her court case was over 2 years long. She needed more supports through that system. And then she had a lifelong trauma. She tried to apply. She was diagnosed with PTSD. She could not hold down a job because of her insomnia and her depression from her trauma.
And then when COVID hit, having to wear masks and stuff, the mask made her bring back the night of the assault. And so when all that hit, she
felt very
lost
alone.
the job and felt judged and alone. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then she applied for disability because of her PSD and her inability to work, and was denied getting access to disability because they said her
condition was not severe enough.
Yeah, her condition was not severe enough,
which ultimately led to her death. And the ruling came after she had passed. So it's disheartening, right? It's like who's accountable for making these decisions when ultimately her death was caused by her PTSD.
Oh, I know. Yeah, it's brutal. Navigating the system, and then it's almost like a game. It's like there's key words you have to throw in there, and it's like you have to word it just right. And if you're honest, or it's trying to get sick people to fill out paperwork.
Yes.
And then, you're not bad enough because they're sick and they're just trying to get the paperwork done.
Yeah. She's trying to make up today is what she's trying to do, not fill paperwork, right? Like she's just trying to be here and present in her current life. And she woke up many days where she was puking and she could barely get out of bed. Like it was debilitating to her. And then to have to go through all these hoops just to have some funding to be able to have a normal life and succeed,
to afford a house, like housing, to afford food, basic needs is all she was looking for.
Thank you so much, ladies. That was very, very brave of you. I can only imagine how difficult it is to talk about your sister's passing and to be so open and vulnerable, especially when it's still a very recent event. So thank you again. Hey, if you find yourself near or in Regina, Saskatchewan this week, I suggest on Wednesday checking out the More Joy Regina event. It's a mental health event held every year at the Connexus Arts Center. To get tickets, you can go on the Facebook page More Joy Challenge, and there's everything about the event there. And hey, if you would like to be so kind to buy me a coffee, I now have a Buy Me a Coffee account. It's at www.buymeacoffee.com/bunnyhugs, and it would be so incredibly appreciated if you felt so inclined to support a podcaster that is needing some support. I hate asking for money, so I appreciate anyone that's willing to do that for me. So thank you. And also thank you to Co-op for sponsoring this episode. You've been amazing. And if you'd like to follow the podcast on Instagram, the handle is @BunnyHugsPodcast. And there's all types of great stuff on there. Or you can follow the podcast on Facebook, Bunny Hugs and Mental Health, or on TikTok, Bunny Hugs Podcast. Okay, I think I've covered everything now. So until next time, please remember to make your beds and take your meds. Bye.